Nearly every crop input label includes a recommendation to jar test before tank mixing the product. This is a necessary precaution, as testing product compatibility on a small scale will help you prevent problems when you need to be out in the field.
Ryan, let's talk about jar testing. I don't know, sometimes I feel like it's just one more job that I gotta do, one more project I gotta get done before I get to the field with my sprayer or my planter. And why do I need to jar test?
So Brad, one of the reasons that we want to do jar tests is with the inputs that we're putting together in these tanks these days, we don't want to be slowing down out in the field. The cost of our inputs is another very important thing, that we don't want to mix two of our inputs together and have it not work out in the field for us. That's one of the reasons that we don't want to just wing it, and we want to be doing these jar tests.
Right, so not all of our chemistries and fertilizers and everything mix together nicely, right? So if something doesn't mix nicely, we might end up with cottage cheese in our tank, and we certainly don't want that. That'll slow us down.
Right, and a lot of times on the labels, you can find the proper mixing procedures for a lot of this stuff. But whenever you're looking down through that, there's a couple things that we can do to kind of help us get through a jar test if you've never done one on your farm yourself.
Okay, so I've never done a jar test before. Is there kind of a procedure to walk through that, or what's the proper way to do a jar test?
One of the things we use whenever we're looking at doing a jar test is called the Wales sequence. And it's a combination of how you're going to mix these products in that jar.
And the Wales sequence is an acronym, W-A-L-E-S, for the order in which you want to put your blend of different liquids and inputs together, right?
Correct, correct.
So what's W stand for?
So W stands for wettable powders or water dispersible granules.
And then you move on to A. What's A stand for?
So with A, we're going to agitate those wettable powders. And then we're going to add our adjuvants, such as our anti-foaming agents and our buffers.
Okay, and then L?
Is liquids. That's what's going to go in next.
All right, W-A-L-E. What's E stand for?
So E is your emulsified concentrate. So some of our chemistries and some of our fertilities aren't necessarily a true solution, they're emulsified concentrates. So that's what's going on in that situation.
Sounds good. And the last one in the acronym is S.
That's your surfactants, that's your stickers and stuff like that that are going to go in that tank.
Okay, so we've put the order of each of those ingredients into our jar. Now what do we do once we have all those different things in the jar?
Once all the ingredients have been added, you're going to want to shake for an additional 5 seconds and then let the mixture stand for 30 minutes.
So we're going to let that stand for 30 minutes and then we're going to watch it, right? And make sure that we don't see anything start to fall out. We want to make sure it stays in suspension. We don't want anything to precipitate out or to separate.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that we have a mixture that's going to hold together whenever we move from the jar test to our tank mix.
Very good. Now that we've done our jar test and we know that those different solutions will stay compatible in the jar for that 30 minutes, we've tested the physical compatibility of that solution, right?
Correct.
But how do we test the chemical compatibility? How do we know it's going to work once we spray it in the field?
That's a good point. So what we have to do next is go out and make sure that our chemical compatibility is going to be there. The best way to do that is to take and look at a small area that we can spray to either check for crop damage or make sure that our chemical is actually going to be efficient that we're using.
Hey, thanks Ryan. Appreciate all the information on jar testing and why we need to do so. It's also important that we follow all label instructions. We want to make sure we're protecting ourselves, our equipment, and our investment.
Please come back and join us for the next video, which is going to be taking this up one notch to tank mixing procedures.
If you have any questions on jar testing, feel free to visit agroliquid.com.